Are you ready today, church? Today is the final message in our series, My Story. I can't wait to introduce you to today's story, but I want to start from the book of Acts. So if you have your Bibles, turn to the book of Acts, Acts chapter 6. I'm going to read just one verse, and then we're going to talk for a little bit about today's story. Acts chapter 6, verse number 1 says this: Now in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplying, there arose a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists because their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution. I want you to think about that again. Listen, the number of disciples was multiplying. In other words, people were gathering, church was increasing, right? And it says there arose a complaint. Could you imagine? More people led to more problems. I know it's shocking that in the church, listen, imagine what was happening in the book of Acts. Miracle after miracle after miracle. The church was multiplying rapidly. They were seeing substantial growth, but yet in the middle of all of that, a complaint. A complaint. And it was a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists. Now, the Hellenists and the Hebrews were both Jewish people, okay? Because the Gentiles had not been reached yet. No Gentiles had been reached. So the church was growing among the Jewish people. The Hellenists were those that had begun to live in Greek cities. They'd adopted a Greek culture, and they began to speak the Greek language, but they had traveled back to Jerusalem, and the Hebrews called them the Hellenists. And so they were still Jewish people. And there was a legitimate complaint. You know, some complaints are legitimate. Some complaints are right, that the widows of the Hellenists were being overlooked. And it's very possible that it could have been something that was racial that took place. Maybe the Jewish people still living in Jerusalem that had not adopted the Greek culture, maybe they were offended by the Hellenists, and so maybe this was something that was done purposeful. It could have very well been something that was intentional, that the widows were being overlooked in the food distribution. Shouldn't have happened, but it happened. And they dealt with it. But there was a problem that rose up. And here's what happens many times is whether it's intentional or unintentional, problems come. I was just the other day at Chick-fil-A. I took my son and two of his friends to Chick-fil-A, and this is a Chick-fil-A that's kind of far away from here. Never been into this one before. And as soon as you walked into this Chick-fil-A, there was a sign that said, if you're carrying out, go this way. If you're dining in, go this way. And there was somebody there to help us and said, they said, are you carrying out or are you dining in? I said, we're dining in. So she said, well, go ahead and head to the table. I'll come and take your order. And I thought, well, this is new, right? I've been to Chick-fil-A a lot. I mean, a lot, all right? And I'd never ordered from the table. So there's this young girl. She looks like she's like 15 or 16. She comes to the table just as nice as could be, right? And so she begins to take our order. So she took our order, and then she brings the order, and then, do you need anything? And extra sauces, and I got 3 teenage boys with me, so they need everything. Can I get this? Can I get? So then she goes and gets refills. I mean, she was just amazing. And I thought, wow, this is amazing customer service. Like you usually expect that at Chick-fil-A, but like this was next level. Right? So I'm sitting there, and I thought, I'm going to get ice cream for the boys. So, she was just like nearby. She was always paying attention and looking. And so I said, well, hey, I just kind of raised my hand. She goes, yes, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I want to order some ice cream for the boys. She said, absolutely. So we ordered ice cream for the boys. I'm like, this person is awesome. And I said, I'm going to say something to the manager. So I found a different person working, and I said, hey, can you get the manager to come over? She said, yes, absolutely. So then the manager comes over, and I said, hey, I just want to let you know that the young lady who was helping us just did an amazing job. And she said, well, thank you very much, you know what I mean? And then she walked off. I had ordered the ice cream, and then like 5 minutes goes by and no ice cream. Right? And the 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes. And it's like 10 minutes. And now I'm starting to think, how long does it take to make ice cream? I mean, it's like, I know how to do it. It's not that complicated. I can see how they do it. It shouldn't take 10 minutes. And I can't find the person who was helping us nowhere. She was gone. And so I'm sitting there and like, we got to go. And like, I'm going, okay, we got to go. And like, they have this giant cow at this particular Chick-fil-A where you take some pictures and even things that you hold up. I mean, it was like crazy Chick-fil-A, right? So I'm like, what happened? And she was nowhere to be found. She was gone. And I had to go up and ask. And I said, hey, I ordered some ice cream like 10 minutes ago. And I just need to get it to go now because we got to go. And they're like, well, let me look. And oh, yeah, yes, I don't know what happened. I said, I don't know what happened either. But I've been forgotten. And, it was like they were so kind and so nice and so thoughtful 1 minute. And then the next minute, forgotten, gone, abandoned. I never saw her again. And, it's one thing when that's a restaurant. Because when it's a restaurant, you could just go, okay, that's it, I'm done. Now, I'm not done with Chick-fil-A, just so you know, all right? But I go, well, if it's a restaurant, most of the time we just go, okay, well, I'm just not going to go there, or you complain, or you leave them a bad review. Some of you are like that. Well, I'm just going to get online, I'm just going to, you get on some app and you leave them some bad review or something. It's one thing when it's a restaurant or it's a place of business where you can just remove your service and just thought, okay, I'm done with this place. It's another thing when it's the church. Right? It's another thing when it's the church that forgets you. That you walked in and you found a church home and you started making this church your place of worship. And at first it seems like you love it and everybody's kind and everybody's nice. But then at some point you go, well, hey, they forgot about me. Hey, they're not as nice as they were when I first showed up. Or you start serving or you get involved and something happens, a complaint arises, right? And all of a sudden you start to deal with church hurt. See, restaurant hurt is easy to remove yourself from. Church hurt is completely different. When it happens at church, it really hurts. Here's some possibilities. The leadership made some changes that affected you directly. Church hurt. You sent an email, no one responded. Church hurt. You started to serve but felt like you were taken advantage of. Church hurt. The pastor had a moral failure. Church hurt. You gave something or did something and it was never acknowledged. Church hurt. The leadership made a bad decision with the finances. Church hurt. Someone in your connect group broke a confidence that you shared. Church hurt. They missed a big moment in your life. Church hurt. The pastor made fun of the Miami Hurricanes. Church hurt. Okay? Which, stick around, that will happen in this particular church. And I just want to be clear. Let me just tell you, this is not someone that just wears their feelings on their sleeve, right? And they're just easily offended. Years ago, we had a couple that came to the church, and the husband was kind of involved. The wife really wasn't. And this is before we bought this building, and we were meeting at Wellington High School. And the couple stopped coming for a few weeks, and so I called them. And I said, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I was talking to the husband, and he said, well, we won't be coming back. And I said, well, why? What happened? And he said, well, my wife said that she was in the foyer of the church, and your wife looked directly at her and then looked away. And so we're not coming back. And I said, man, I'm so sorry that happened. I don't even know what to say. And, we talked for a few more moments and then hung up. And then I talked to Cynthia, and Cynthia said, what? I don't even remember seeing her. She said, I was looking for someone in the foyer, and I was just scanning the foyer, and maybe I just looked at her for a moment, but I was looking for somebody to give them something. I did not intentionally just try to diss somebody. Come on now, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even remember that. See, this isn't that. If that's the issue, bye. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not going to take much, right? If you're the kind that wears your feelings on your sleeve, you're going to have trouble in any large gathering, okay? It's just the way it is. So this isn't that. This also isn't like when a leader has to bring correction to somebody. We had a guy who was a greeter one time, and he said something wildly inappropriate to a female walking in. And so we had to confront him. And when we confronted him, he said, who are you to tell me what I could say or not say? And then he left, never saw him again. That was it. And if that's the case, bye again. You know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't that. This is when it's legitimate. This is when somebody, like I said, intentionally, unintentionally hurt you, said something, did something, poor decisions were made, right? This is when the experience that you had is legitimate offense, right? I want to give you one truth and one response. Ready? One truth and one response. Here's the truth. People will fail you. People will fail you. I shared with my daughter my experience at Chick-fil-A because my daughter used to work at Chick-fil-A. So I said to her, Hannah, here's what happened to me at Chick-fil-A. And I said, I was sitting there at the table, and I didn't know what to call the person. I called her a waitress. She said, team member. I said, sorry, team member, okay? So I said, well, here's what happened to me. And she goes, well, Dad, it happens. People forget. Haven't you ever forgotten somebody? And I'm like, yeah, I have. But, easy, all right? So, but then I started to think about it, and she's like, she's right. I've forgotten people, right? Sometimes when it happens to us, we get so offended, but yet we make mistakes. We fail people. Let me tell you, people will fail you. People will betray you. People will walk out on you. People will hurt you. It happens. Why? Because people are human. Now, it shouldn't happen. Did you hear me? It should not happen in church. But it does happen. It's not right and it hurts, but they are people. And people will fail you. Years ago, I was pastoring in North Florida, and we had a leadership dinner, and our children's pastor had a daughter that had a peanut allergy. And so she couldn't eat from a certain restaurant. Well, I really wanted to order from that restaurant. And I knew that she had a peanut allergy. I knew she couldn't eat from the restaurant. But I said, well, there wasn't a lot of choices in a small town. So I said, well, I'm going to order from that restaurant. But I'm going to call them and let them know so that I'm giving them a heads up. And I thought that was the right thing to do. So when I called them and said, hey, I'm going to order from this restaurant. I know she has a peanut allergy. She can't eat the food. But I'm just giving you that heads up. Well, the daughter was hurt, rightfully so, because I didn't even think about the fact that, it's dangerous. This is a dangerous allergy that she had. She can't even be around food that's been cooked in peanut oil. So she was hurt. And I found out about it. So I said, I got to do something. So I bought her a little teddy bear and wrote her a note. She was like 8 years old. Her name was Shelby. And I said, Shelby, I'm sorry. I should not have done that. I should have been more considerate. There were other options. And I just didn't care as much as I should have. And so she wrote me a note back. I'll never forget it. And she said, Dear Pastor, I forgive you. It's okay. Pastors are just human. And I thought, man, let's go, man. And I go, I hope she remembers